please suggest any books on Usool al Hadith and the Hadith books. So I'm just going to divide this question into two parts. One of them, the question is about Usool al Hadith. Now, what is an Usool al Hadith actually mean? The Usool al Hadith basically means the really foundation of how the Hadith was being compiled, starting from the Prophet ﷺ and the Sahabas, Tabain, Taba Tabain, and the later scholars, how they protected all these Hadith, and the later scholars, they come to the concept of compiling together and giving the classifications of a Hadith, and how do you identify if it is a fabricated, or is a mursal, or is a mawdu Hadith, and there's a lot of classifications. So studying all that formulas and the foundation of Hadith is called Usool al Hadith. So getting to directly reading a Hadith and directly going into reading the Hadith and accepting it, it is very important for the students of knowledge to know what is a Usool al Hadith, because once they go through the main foundation of the Hadith, how the Hadith came into the existence, so it is very important for every student of knowledge to know the Usool al Hadith. So I'm going to give you the recommendation. So the next question, asking about what books would you suggest. I have a very good two books that comes into my mind, which is also being recommended on ALIM University. It's called An Introduction to the Science of Hadith by Ibn al-Salah, and the other Usool al Hadith, I'm going to recommend the book by Dr. Bilal Phillips, which is Usool al Hadith. These are the best books because I have gone through, and for me, I would recommend to every student of knowledge, because these are the authentic scholars. Because when you say authentic scholars, so maybe every scholar has a differentiation. Now there's a lot of problems among the scholars, as many of them would write the books and author the books with the accepting the weak hadith and the fabricated hadith. It's okay as long as it's a good amal. So, but sticking to the right hadith, to the sahih hadith, it protects us to be within a limitation that we do not exceed to the boundaries of what is supposed to be within a boundary, not getting up from there. So most of the scholars from the subcontinent, they authored many books on hadith, and also within the hadith books they are accepting the daif hadith and the fabricated hadith, with an intention that if someone is doing a good amal, it is okay, we can accept that. But according to what the rules of Shariah is, according to the book of Allah and the teachings of the Prophet ﷺ, we have to stick to what is a limitation, and our limitation is stick to the Sahih Hadith and not to go beyond that, because if you go beyond the Sahih Hadith, you will get misguided from the weak Hadith to the fabricated Hadith, and by naturally the nafs shaitan of a human being, he will remove you from what is sahih, and he will keep your mind towards what is weak. Because what will happen in the next generation? The next generation might come up with something new, and they will go beyond more and more. So let's keep our limitation in order for us to stay on the Sirat al-Mustaqim, stay in the limitation of the Sahih Hadith. So these are the two books I'm going to recommend you, and also as a student of knowledge, if you want to investigate on other books, it is fine, but do not accept every scholar what every scholar says, but do your own research.